And welcome back to another episode of 412 Press Coverage here today with our third episode in the series. We got a big slate of topics coming for you guys today.
Yes, sir.
And obviously, first and foremost, as always, every week, we'll talk about the 6-time Super Bowl champion, most
All
wins in the
right,
modern
all
era in
right, all
NFL
right.
history. The
Whoa.
Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday defeated the Carolina Panthers 24-16 to improve to 6-8 on the season. Mitchell Trubisky started and had a pretty solid game, not too crazy, in um in replacing Kenny Pickett, who was obviously out with a concussion. The a few things that weren't too impressive. J. Rob, we'll just start with your first initial thoughts of the game.
I don't think it was a bad game at all. I do like the fact that they got Najee, way more involved. They did steal them two touchdowns off of him. The one that went to Warren and the one that went to Trubisky. It was pretty ridiculous because Najee got him all the way down there, and then Trubisky failed the first time for the sneak, and he got it the second time. But it is what it is. They scored. But yeah, I like the fact that they got him more involved. And I feel like that's what the Steelers needed. They needed a running back that's more involved. And, I think it worked out for them.
And I like that you mentioned that they need a running back that's more involved because the kind of thing that's starting to I kind of see as a pattern is it feels like to me like the Steelers are starting to build kind of an identity of a ground and pound team, strong power runners, taking up a lot of the clock, taking up a lot of plays, and even though they haven't had those, they had a big play against Atlanta, but they haven't had necessarily had the 30, 40, 50-yard plays, but they moved down the field slowly but surely, and a lot of that has to do with the running game that is honestly really improved. Obviously Najee Harris ran for almost over 1,200. He ran for over 1,200 yards last season as a rookie with an offensive line that everybody knows really struggled last year. This year, the line as the season has gone on has gotten better. So has Najee. Started off kind of slow. The last couple stretch of games, especially since the bye,
Kind of.
when he's been healthy, Najee has really picked it up. He's ran for over 70 yards in all those games, and he scored touchdowns in most of them.
And I
The
like
thing
that you
about
touched on
Najee,
that because he definitely has gotten way better. I think there's
mhm,
a game at the beginning of the season that he only rushed for like 24 yards or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yep.
The thing about Najee is he's a power runner, and at the beginning of it's one thing to have a bad line, it's another thing to just look bad as a running back, and at the beginning of the season, you weren't necessarily seeing that power and that dog that you kinda saw from his rookie season, and over the past couple games, he obviously had the stiff arm against the Falcons where he, like, threw the guy into the field. Obviously, this weekend on that touchdown that he
Mhm.
scored, he kinda ran through the defense, so Najee has definitely been getting a lot better. Jaylen Warren has played I like Jalen Warren as a backup if he can continue to get better. And the thing about Warren is he's fast. He's just quick. You give him the ball, and he's not going to necessarily make you miss, or he's not going to necessarily run you over like Najee would, but he'll run right by you. And I think they're starting to build up a pretty good two-headed monster. But let's talk about the defense real quick. You know, last weekend when they played the Ravens, I kind of mentioned that the Ravens knew the only way they'd beat the Steelers is if they ran the ball, and therefore the Steelers should have known that if they stopped Baltimore from running the ball effectively, they would win. And they didn't do that. And coming into this game against the Carolina team that had won 3 of their last 4, 232 in a win against Atlanta, 183 in a win against Denver, 223 in a win against Seattle, and then they had 36 rushing yards in a loss to Baltimore. The winning formula for the Panthers over the past 4 games during their kind of hot streak, I guess, has been running the ball. And therefore, the Steelers were presented with the challenge this week, which is to stop the run. And they succeeded. They only gave up 21 yards, and Sam Darnold only passed for 188. And when you go on the road and you give up 209 yards, chances are you're going to do enough to put your offense in a position to score more points than them and score enough points to win the game. And it's kind of sad because the Steelers, we've seen them have flashes of greatness, but then we've also seen them play bad. And it's unfortunate that, we're sitting at 6-8 right now. Last week against Baltimore, maybe if they gave up 150 rushing yards instead of 215, we're sitting at 7-7 and we're potentially, close to a playoff spot with Kenny coming back.
That's the good thing is you look at the playoff standings right now. The AFC playoff standings is a little more open than the NFC.
Hmm.
Um, the two bottom teams are 8 and 6. I don't see the Chargers winning out. The Dolphins may win out, but I don't see the Chargers winning out.
I think the
So I don't
Dolphins
think
are
that's
set.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think
I
that's
think the
going to go
Dolphins
too
are set.
well. So I do believe that somewhere in the AFC, there was a playoff spot open.
Hmm.
And the Steelers could have been in that playoff spot. Sitting at 6-8.
Well, the thing is about the Steelers, it's kind of a shame that they definitely have the pieces for the future. They got guys like Highsmith and obviously T.J. Watt on the defensive line. Obviously, the interior D line needs to improve because Cam Hayward's getting older. He probably won't be there more than a couple more years. Our linebackers probably could be a little bit better. Devin Bush, recovering from the ACL, hasn't been the same since he got hurt. And Miles Jack doesn't. I'm not sure if he'll be a player that'll be here for longer than his 1 or 2 year contract. In the secondary, we still got Minka and we still got Edmonds. Who Edmonds might be gone after this season. Who knows? But they've been playing solid. Our cornerbacks can obviously improve there, but and offensively, man, we're continuing to get better. Hopefully, Kenny's back this weekend in the game against the Raiders on Christmas Eve. But like I said,
That's nasty.
the Steelers are starting to establish an identity, and they're starting to show that you know we're a team that we have. They obviously get Fryermuth, who had 0 targets in this game, but Fryermuth has been getting better and showing that he's a top tight end. We have George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, who probably won't be here past this season, hopefully not. And it's kind of a shame that it's kind of bittersweet because like the Steelers have shown that they can be good, in the future, which is what we want. But this season, think about it. We lost a tough game to the Jets in Kenny's first career appearance. He threw those interceptions at the end, especially that one off the fingertips of Fryermuth. We lost to New England 17-14 earlier in the season. That was when our offense was still struggling, and we lost to Baltimore last week. And I know you don't want to play the if or what if games, but if the Steelers win those 3 games, we're talking about not only being in playoff position, but we're talking about being in contention for the division. So I think our future is bright.
Yeah, I do want to touch on that. George Pickens. He's a star, but I
Yeah.
feel like the Steelers also need to give him a ball. Just I don't care if you throw it to him. Just make sure you throw it to him at least 7 times a game. Like that should be your goal every
Mhm.
single time you play. Throw the ball to him at least 7 times a game. That's it. That's all. Like not that's it, but that's what you guys need to aim for at least every single game. That he's a playmaker, and I don't feel like he not by any means not saying he's the best wide receiver in the league, but he's a playmaker, and playmakers need the ball to make plays. So I feel like that is what they need to do.
Well, yeah, and that's why I kind of mentioned about Deontay Johnson like needing to go because Johnson had 10 catches, 10 targets, 98 yards, which 10 catches is the most he's had since 2 years ago. We played Jacksonville. That was on November 12th, 2020. And then he had the most yards he had since last season when we beat the Ravens on December 5th, 2021. He had the most yards. And Deontay shows flashes at times, but obviously Deontay drops, and we all know about that. But I think he's really withholding Pickens. They only had 5 targets yesterday, and obviously the last couple games he hasn't really been getting involved too much. But
And Pickens can be a
yeah,
superstar. That's the problem. Pickens can
Pickens
definitely
can
be a
he
Steelers
he
superstar.
he can be our superstar wide receiver. And I think the thing about Pickens is he still has room to get better, even though he's already pretty good. You know, it seems like every time they throw the ball up to him on the sideline, he catches it. Doesn't matter who's defending him. If it's 1-on-1 and he's on the sideline and he's on a streak route and they throw it up to him, it seems like he catches it every time. And thing about Pickens is he still has room to get better, whereas Deontay Johnson, we kind of know who he is. He's not really getting any better. So, I hopefully, Mitch
Damn, that
Trubisky
was harsh. That
Mitch
was real
Trubisky
harsh.
targeted Deontay 10 times. So, maybe Mitch will leave this offseason. Deontay Johnson go with him since they love playing together so much.
I mean, man, the Giants won't cheat you like that, Deontay. We
You
love to
guys,
have a guy
you
like
you
you
guys can
around.
have him. What draft picks do you want to give us for him?
I don't know about that. I just said we love to have him. I didn't say we were gonna give up everybody for him.
Well, we need draft picks for him.
Everyone needs
But
draft picks.
another thing from yesterday's Steeler game that future is bright. 12 for 16 on third down, which is really incredible. And they had a 21 play drive, which is one of 6 play drives during the 21st century. So that's pretty incredible. Before we move on to the next subject, I just want to ask you real quick, what did you think of that Marcus Allen penalty?
Which one?
You didn't see that? Marcus Allen
First
is like
down.
a well, he's a linebacker, but like a special teams player. And the Steelers had the Panthers. It was in the fourth quarter. The Steelers were winning 21-7. We had them. It was like 4th and 25 at the Panthers 50 at like the midfield, and the Panthers were about to punt. And it was in between the third and fourth quarter, so it was at the third and fourth quarter break. And Marcus Allen went over to the Panthers huddle and were taunting them and yelling at
Yeah, I
them.
seen that.
And he got a 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty, which gave them an automatic first
Um,
down. A special team player
here's the
only does
thing.
special teams.
Here's the thing with that. I've seen a lot of people giving Tomlin heat about that. Just that play in general, about how Tomlin has no control of his players, and he's a grown man. He's gonna do whatever he wants to do, no matter what Tomlin says. But I do think that is a big issue right now, especially with the young Steelers core. I think that it should never happen. Um, you know, it's going to be a flag 10 times out of 10,
Yeah.
and that should absolutely never, even if you're joking, you don't do that during a game,
Well, and
especially
especially if you're a special teams player, like no disrespect to you, I know getting to the NFL is, it's a grind and you have to work every single day. I understand that. I'm not taking anything away from him, but you have to know your role. The defense has been playing lights out all day, and we have another stop where they're in field goal range, and we get them out of field goal range. For you to take a penalty like that, especially when you're only seeing the field during punts and kickoffs, if I was on the defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would have a big issue with him. And you're right about the Tomlin thing. Is obviously Tomlin can't know that he's going to go over and do that. Because nobody ever does that, especially
but
in the
there has
NFL.
to be there has to be repercussions for when a
But
player does something stupid like that.
then it's the culture thing where the Steelers historically, Antonio Brown, obviously Le'Veon Bell, Juju Smith-Schuster to an extent, he wasn't necessarily a dip, but with his TikToks and stuff. And
Yeah, I'll
if
never
if,
forget
if
the
I
day
were Mike
Juju
Tomlin, if I were
Juju
Mike,
made a
yeah,
TikTok on the
yeah,
on the
on
M
on the on the Bengals, yeah, on the
yeah,
Bengals
and
logo.
then he got boomed in the
I don't
fumble.
know what goes into front office decision making, but if Mike Tomlin wanted to make a statement, Marcus Allen, he should have got cut first thing this morning. Because I mean, could you imagine if the Panthers they only got a field goal out of that?
If they would
Could you
have won.
imagine if they would have scored a touchdown and then things started to spiral out of our way and that whole, you know what I'm saying?
Yep,
So
I definitely
I don't know.
understand.
It's tough, but the Steelers play good. You know, we're showing bright spots. We're not technically eliminated from the playoffs, but we are. Like we're not going. So hopefully Kenny can come back and have a good game this Saturday on Christmas Eve against the Raiders. But I know another game, cruise control to go to the playoffs now, and did a bit of a controversial ending though. What
I
did you think of
mean,
that?
by any means, I'll tell anybody. Yesterday, the Giants didn't deserve to win that game. I say it every time, every week, every football game. You have to finish the football game. If you don't finish the football game, you don't deserve to win. It's just simple as that. And the Giants know they didn't deserve to win that game yesterday. It was a great game up until the end. There was a lot of, controversial calls yesterday, even from a fan's point of view. And I mean, I absolutely love the Giants, but no way that we should be happy about that win. Like, yes, it's a win, good job, but we shouldn't be happy about that win whatsoever. We should have came out and made a statement with them essentially and blew them out the water. Kind of like the statement, like the Cowboys, they should have came out and made a statement against the Jags this weekend, and they didn't. But that's the problem. You don't finish the game, and that's what happens. Cowboys didn't finish the game, and they lost. Giants didn't finish the game, and I will say we might have got bailed out a little bit. But guess what? It's football. It happens. But we got to finish games, and if we don't, we're going to continue to lose, and we're not going to be very far in the playoffs.
I think the thing is about the Giants, especially in yesterday's game, was I think they made the big plays when the big plays were necessary, and they had more big plays than Washington. But
Well, like
the
I was
deep,
saying last week, you give the ball to Saquon Barkley, they were force feeding him in the
well,
fourth quarter, and it
and
worked.
Saquon, yeah, he was playing solid at the start. I'm not gonna act like he was playing great, but he was doing enough. But then on that last drive, Saquon Barkley, the drive, not the last drive, the second to last drive of
The
the game, I guess
second,
the last
yep.
drive for the Giants. The Giants took plenty of time off the clock, and I'm pretty sure they got a field goal on that last one.
Yeah, and they
Barkley
handed him
started
the
off
ball
that
3 times in a row,
he
and he got
started
three
off
first
that
downs.
drive with a rush of 12 yards, followed by a 15-yard rush and a 14-yard rush.
Yep.
He had 48 total rushing yards. I'm not sure how many he had on the game. I'm thinking that's about over. I think that's a little bit over half of the rushing yards he had in the game overall. On the
Yep.
final drive, on the clutch drive when it mattered most, and it seems as if one of the harder things to do in the NFL is to run the ball when the other team knows you're going to run it.
Knows you're
And
running the ball. Everyone in the stadium knew you were going to run the ball.
and Barkley, they say big time players make big time plays. And in a big moment, Barkley got the ball and he was hitting spin moves. Even when he was getting met at the line, he was still pushing through for 2, 3 extra yards. So Barkley came up big yesterday, and the Giants defense, the Giants defense really there were times where they did not look good. When Washington scored, or not just when they scored, but at times when Washington moved the ball, they moved the ball. It seemed fairly easily on their touchdown
Whatever.
drive. On Washington's touchdown drive, 6 plays, 91 yards on only 6 plays took 4 minutes and 11 seconds. The drive where they fumbled, where Taylor Heineke fumbled in the fourth quarter, just 5 plays to get 77 yards. And the thing is like the fumbles and then obviously the drive at the end of the game where Washington took a penalty, controversial or not, it kind of begs the question, which is, did the Giants win this one or did the Commanders lose it?
I mean, if you're a Commanders fan, you're going to say they got cheated 100%. And am I totally against them? No. I think the Giants got really lucky that game, and I don't think we can go in playing sloppy football like that in the playoffs because we will get booted out the first round.
Well, the Terry McLaurin illegal formation penalty, which I'm sure,
That was
you
crazy.
know, I don't know why that matters. I'm sure there's some reason. I have no clue
Yeah,
what
I
it
mean,
is.
to be totally
Because the
honest,
guy's lined 2 feet
yeah,
behind where he's supposed to be
yeah,
lined up, they
and
get
I
a
mean,
5 yard
it really
penalty.
doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
it, in all reality,
It had nothing to do with the play.
nothing to do with anything. Like, I don't even believe in the illegal formation. Like,
Yeah, like, well, who cares?
there's a difference when someone's like in motion, moving. Like, okay,
Mhm.
I understand that,
But 2
but
feet behind the line?
yeah, just because the guy's not lined up on the line, it doesn't even make that big. Like, it doesn't make that big of a difference for you to be
And
flagging someone on a drive, on a
mhm,
game winning drive, on a game winning play,
yeah.
and on top of that, he checked with you twice.
And exactly, I'm assuming you saw that he pointed at the referee
Yeah,
to make sure
so
he was in the right
and
spot and they
usually when you
flagged
do
him.
that, that's a hey ref, am I on? Good,
Mhm.
okay, cool. But
But, like, the thing is like, that Terry McLaurin penalty was, like, in terms of it being
that was draining. And I mean, if that happened
yes,
to the Giants, we
yes.
all be here crying and complaining like this is ridiculous. Like that stuff shouldn't happen.
And what the Giants did at the end of the game, the no call on pass interference, I think was far more malicious than Terry McLaurin being 2 steps behind the line. I mean, I know if you turn and face the ball, technically, it's supposed to be legal guarding position, I guess, which you kind of say. I know that's not a term, but he had his hands kind of wrapped around him and way before the ball got there. So I think the ending was definitely poorly officiated, poorly
Yeah.
officiated to the Giants' benefit.
And I mean, let's hold some accountability to the refs. I don't like that the NFL will sit here and make a statement with the players, but they don't ever say nothing with the refs. Some of these refs need fined, if not fired, for some of their performances. And I don't feel like I've ever heard anything publicly about when a ref gets in trouble for making bad calls and bad decisions. I mean, just
Well,
like the NBA, when the NBA has all these soft little calls that the
mhm.
refs be calling, like I think it's becoming a bigger issue that needs handled and needs handled publicly, just like you handle publicly with these players.
Well, yeah, and it's like refs don't have to talk to the media, but the players too. I think it's kind of a thing of holding them accountable, right?
Yeah,
Holding referees accountable whenever they make
horrible
calls
calls.
like that
Let's
or
just call
tough
it how it
calls
is. It's a
where
horrible call.
the thing is like the one against Terry McLaurin, it's not necessarily. I mean, obviously the ref checked with him, but it's not on the ref. Like that's in the rule book. That's what the rule says. That's more of a NFL rules committee needs to go in and change that. But the one
Yeah,
at the end where it's no pass interference, especially kind of in sports, sometimes we see like makeup calls where one call doesn't go a team's way, and then another call does, and they make a call to kind of make up for it. You're telling me after what you did to Washington, taking away their touchdown, you can't give them a pass interference, especially how malicious and how obvious that
well,
one's going to be.
that's another thing is like, you know, it's getting a lot more relevant right now. That team people are talking about, sports betting and online betting and all of this stuff,
It's a
and it's
good point.
becoming a really, really big issue. And then you have refs doing stuff like that, and you're
Yeah.
like, what the heck? Like how? Like you know what I mean? So you can't I think the NFL needs to get ahead of this now before it becomes a bigger issue. It's just an issue where it's like, hey, it's happening. People are literally questioning you guys. Sports betting is really becoming a problem, and you guys just are sitting back, not saying nothing about your rest, basically giving the game away. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think overall, though, yesterday, I think the ending really kind of goes away from the overall theme, which is that the Giants had big plays and not the Redskins, excuse me, the Commanders made big mistakes. The Giants got a strip sack touchdown from their defense. They got the
yep,
big runs by Saquon. They got the 50-yard field goal at the end to put them
number
up by 8.
five.
You
We
know,
gotta
the
get
re-
his
the
jersey.
the Commanders had not one but two fumbles, and obviously that penalty on McLaurin at the end. Like it or not, it's still in the rule book, so it's technically
You
that's
know,
still on them.
if
So
my boy
I think
Kayvon
the
sees this
Giants
video, send me a
would,
signed five jersey. If my boy Kayvon sees this video, man, I need that jersey. That man is special.
but
He's all Michael Parsons. He's
he's
better than
good. Yeah.
Michael.
All right, relax, relax. Well, he might be better than Parsons. He's not better than T.J. Watt.
Come on now, stop with that.
That's what I thought. But so that begs the question, though. Now that the Giants sit at 8-5-1,
Well, we're
are they
chilling.
shoo-ins? Are they
We're
shoo-ins
chilling.
for the playoffs?
I
They
mean,
finish
we
the
got to
season
win one
at
more game, and I
Minnesota.
think we push.
At Minnesota, then they'll have to play at home against the Colts. We need to assume that that's going to be a win. They have to win that one. But other than that, they play at Minnesota and at Philly.
You win one more
If they
game, and
can
you
win one of
clinch.
those two games, they'll both be
Yeah,
tough. They'll both be on the road. I think they're shooing for the playoffs.
yeah. We win one more game, and we clinch. We can lose the rest of the season, and because
Oh, really?
it'll bring us to 9-5-1, and everyone else still has 7 losses besides the Commanders.
Well, that's interesting. Just you have to be careful because Seattle is 7-7, if I'm
Yep.
not wrong, and the Lions are 7-7, and the Giants lost to both of those teams earlier on in the season. Now, I'm not sure. I'm not sure there would
Well,
be a
that's like
tiebreaker with those teams because I don't
there's
think
three
they'd have to
games
get a
left. Hold on,
tie.
hold on.
They'd have
There's 3 games left though, right?
the Giants. So if the Giants win against the Colts and they lose to the
Nine,
Vikings
five,
and
and one.
Philly, well, they'd be 9-7-1. If I'm
So
assuming they lose to the Vikings and Philly, in say the Seattle and the Lions, it's very unlikely. But if Seattle and the
okay,
Lions
okay,
both
yeah, I
win
do
out,
see,
they'd be
I
ten and
do see
seven.
it. So
So I
nine,
think
seven, and one.
technically they can miss
Yeah.
out.
So they have to beat 2 of the teams because if the Seahawks or Lions win out,
Win out, which they might
then
not. I think the
yeah,
Lions have a good shot at winning out. They finished the season at Green Bay, which will be a tough one, and I'm not sure who Seattle plays, but I think
I don't think
you're right.
so.
They have to beat the Colts. I mean, if the Giants lose 3 straight games, they don't even deserve to make the playoffs.
No, and like I said, I don't think we deserve it in the first place, but it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm always going to be happy with the Giants making the playoffs. I might go buy a ticket to go see the playoff game, but
Well,
it is,
even if they lose in the first round, it's one thing to kind of take a step forward, right? Like the
yeah,
Giants aren't necessarily like the Steelers last year losing in the first round of the playoffs, or even in 2020 losing in the first round was a step back because we have this old team with these old players we need to be winning. Whereas the Giants, you guys aren't necessarily a veteran team that is in win now mode. I mean, you guys might be win in the future mode, but so making to the playoffs, and even if you lose in the first round, I think that would be a big step for you guys.
yeah. At least like it's like the Browns going to the playoffs at this point because
Yeah,
we
relax.
ain't been in a while.
Yeah, no, I swear. Well, the Browns, I think, is a lot worse. But you're right. I mean, what was it 2016 since the boat picture?
2016 and
Yeah.
2010 since the Jets went, and
Oh
2016
wow.
since the Giants went.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
crazy.
it's looking up. It's looking up.
All right. Anything else about the Giants? All right. Well, we're
Not
gonna
this
take
week.
a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the other crazy NFL games that took place this weekend. And welcome back. Time for our next segment. Believe it or not, other than the Steelers and the Giants, more teams, 30
Exist.
actually other NFL 30 other NFL teams actually played this weekend. The San Francisco 49ers defeated Seattle on the road 21-13, clinching their division. That was on Thursday night.
Good game.
Minnesota, the greatest comeback of all time against the Indianapolis Colts and Jeff Saturday, who might have one foot out the door. We don't know. He might already have one foot out. Minnesota comes back from down 33. They defeat Indianapolis 39-36. Cleveland handles business at home against the injury-riddled Baltimore Ravens. They win 13-3. Buffalo pulled it out on a last-second field goal against Miami, 32-29. That wrapped up the Saturday NFL slate. And then on Sunday, the Saints defeated the Falcons 21-18. Philadelphia took care of business, improved to 13-1 against Chicago, 25-20. Detroit pulled it out against the Jets, 20-17. The Jets and Zach Wilson. Dallas lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars on an overtime pick six. The Jags have now won 4 out of 6 games and are just a game out of first place in the AFC South. Kansas City narrowly pulled out a win over the Texans, 30-24 in overtime. Denver defeated Arizona. They win without Russell Wilson. They are now 4-10. They won 24-15. The Patriots and the Vegas Raiders, and maybe one of the craziest endings you'll ever see. The Raiders prevailed 30-24 on a.
Ridiculous.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Ridiculous.
Tennessee is now 7-7. They lose to the Los Angeles Chargers, who are now in prime playoff position. They are 7. The Chargers won 17-14. Joe Shiesty and the Bengals, or should I say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a 425 game, 34-24. Tom Brady had, was it 1 or 2 interceptions and then 2 fumbles in the second half
Oh my goodness.
and a turnover on downs. And
Yeah.
then
I
tonight
mean,
we'll wrap up the Week 15 slate with Los Angeles Rams and the Green Bay Packers at
yeah,
8:15 on
let's
Monday
get
night.
to it. Let's get to it. There's a lot of
Daryl,
good
what
football.
game from this Saturday stood out to you most? There's a lot. Which one stood out to you most?
Let's talk about how about them Cowboys.
How about
Oh
them
my goodness.
Cowboys?
The Cowboys are going to be the Cowboys no matter what. I hate their guts and it will never ever change. But I think they are the worst team. Last week I think we went over our frauds. And the Cowboys are the frauds of this whole NFC. Here's what I'm gonna tell you. Here's why it's not Brady. Here's why it's not, anybody. Here's why it's not the Giants. The Cowboys just lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, saving their playoff. Like, I'm not sure anyone understands that they were out the playoffs. They were out. All they had to do is, win this game, and the Jags were out. And they just saved their playoffs on something that the game should have been wrapped up. It should have been over. I watched the ending of the game from the fourth quarter on. The craziest thing I think that stands out to me is Trevor Lawrence knew he messed up. He fumbled and gave them the ball, and I thought the game was over. But no, not this week in the NFL, because teams don't know how to finish. And that is the true and most. I think that's going to be our word for the week. Teams can't finish, and I think that
Some
is
pe-
what is most important.
yeah, some people can't start, but apparently teams like the Cowboys can't even finish. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
it's
I think yeah, well, let's not take away from the Jaguars in this one. They've won 4 out of 6, like I
no,
mentioned. They're now
they
one
played
game
a
out of
great
first place.
game. Don't
Trevor
don't get me
Lawrence
wrong.
like you said, Trevor Lawrence has been showing strides. Doug Peterson, we saw what he did with Carson Wentz,
Let's let's
back
let's,
when the
let's
when the
talk
Eagles
about
were
Zay
good. But
Jones. Zay Jones had 3 touchdowns for 100
the
yards.
Jaguars made plays down the stretch, and now in at least 2 of their last couple games. I'm not sure about the rest of their games, but I know against Baltimore they had a good comeback where Trevor Lawrence made clutch plays. Yesterday, Trevor Lawrence made a plethora of clutch plays. There was obviously the play by, I think it was Zay Jones, who got his arm barely out of bounds right at the end to get save them that timeout, and then they kicked the
Well,
field goal to
you
go into
tell me,
overtime.
you tell me how you feel about this. How are they an elite defense and then go ahead and lose a game and let
40
up 40
points.
points?
And
You
don't
can't.
don't
You're
get it
not an elite
twisted.
defense.
Was it last week whenever they barely got past the Texans at the end of the game as well?
Yeah.
So
So how elite are they? Are
the
they really the
Cowboys,
frauds of the NFC? Is that the
not
question?
only
Are they
has
the
their
frauds?
defense, they might be, because not only has their defense obviously had a couple two bad games in a row, but let's talk about the offensive side of the ball. I want to talk about Dak Prescott, who is supposed to be the franchise savior for Dallas, but he's
Cooper
been anything
Rush.
but. So far since he came back, he's yet to throw over 300 yards in a game, which
Cooper
doesn't it
Rush.
that's not necessarily a bad thing. But listen to this, Jonathan. In 4 of the 6 games since returning from injury, he has thrown 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions in 4 of the 6 games. In only one game this season, no, in only one game since coming back, he's thrown at least 1 interception. Dak Prescott needs to be the reason why the Cowboys win. And in a game like yesterday where he throws an interception, he quite possibly was the reason why they lost. The last 2 losses the Cowboys have had, they should have been wins. They blew the lead in the fourth quarter to Green Bay. I'm sure you remember that a couple weeks ago. And then yesterday, were they up by 17? Was it 28-10 or something or 31-14? I'm not sure what the score was,
In
but
all reality, let's just put it like this:
they were
they
leading big
shouldn't be.
late
They
and they
shouldn't
blew
be
the
this high.
game.
They shouldn't be this high on the playoff bracket at all. And that's what I want to lead with is they're 10-4 right now. They should be 9-5. And in all reality, the
Who
Giants
should they
should
have
have
lost
snuck a
to? They
game.
should have lost to the Texans.
The Giants, yeah, they should have. They definitely should have lost to the Texans. The Giants should have snuck a game in, but the Giants disappointed. But here's the thing: this so-called elite defense isn't elite, and I want everyone to notice that this defense is supposed to be the best defense in the NFC, and getting wiped by
Mhm.
the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not saying the Jaguars are a bad team, but they're not the Chiefs. They're not the Bengals. They're not the Bills. They're not
Well,
even
Trevor
the
Lawrence is up
Eagles.
and coming, but he's up and coming because he's not there yet. He's not.
Yes.
He's not at the top.
And I'm
He's
not
not at
saying,
the tier.
Trevor Lawrence is a bad quarterback. Trevor Lawrence is a phenomenal quarterback. It's
Mhm.
just the simple fact that the Cowboys are really, really bad,
Yeah,
and they're Cowboys. And Tony Pollard, I think he's their new running back, and they might as well put Cooper Rush in at quarterback because that's just the way it's looking.
that's an interesting statement. And yeah, I mean, they played well under Cooper Rush. I think they only had the one loss, right, which was to Philly.
The
I want to
one
say
loss to Philly,
to
so he
Philly,
really
who's the
didn't
best
lose.
team in the league, at least by record. Yeah, no, that's an interesting take. It'll sure be interesting for what happens to the Cowboys for the rest of the season. I'm pretty sure they're a lock to make it to the playoffs. I think they just need to win one more game and they're in.
No,
But
yeah, they're a lock. They're a lock. They clinched. They clinched yesterday.
let's talk. That's right. They did clinch. That's right. Let's talk about maybe the greatest comeback in NFL history. The Minnesota Vikings trailed 33-0 at half to the Indianapolis Colts. And they once again trailed 36-21 with like around 8 minutes left, and Kirk Cousins threw an interception. And they still came back, and Dalvin Cook got like a 64-yard touchdown on a screen pass,
Ridiculous.
and they got the 2-point conversion. And I think what many people might not realize if they didn't watch the game, Minnesota had a chance to win that game in regulation. They had the ball back. And the Colts, if having a chance to maybe put some more points up or make a stop defensively in the second half wasn't enough, they had the ball in overtime and had a chance to win in overtime too, and they still couldn't get it done. So
Here's
let me
my
ask you
problem.
this. Well, let me ask you this. Was this game more a reflection of Jeff Saturday, the inexperienced head coach who most certainly will not be coaching next season? Or are we seeing a pattern here with Matt Ryan? 28-3,
I'm
33 to
not gonna.
nothing.
No,
Something's
there's
going
no
on
way.
here.
There's
Something's
no
going on
way
here.
I'm gonna sit here and blame Matt Ryan. I think it's
We don't
bad
blame him,
coaching.
but they're two greatest
No,
comebacks in NFL history. He's the
he's a
common
problem.
denominator.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. He is a problem, but he's not the biggest factor in that loss. Um, as a coach, you start to see when your team's messing up, and you have to pull your team together, slap them all on their helmet, and tell them get their shit together and play football. Because that's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, you're playing football, man to man, and you're going to let another man abuse you the way you guys got abused.
Abused.
What is that saying about you?
Yeah,
How
and
soft
I
are you
think
guys? How
it
how
really
manly are you guys to let another team come in your face and beat you down so bad that everyone's talking about it the next day? And I mean, I'm not saying it's any type of disrespectful way, but
Mhm.
Jeff Saturday as a coach, as a Hall of Famer, you got to pull your team together and literally smack them in the helmet and tell them get it together. You're up
Well,
33 to nothing, and you still lose. You
and
put
it's
up 3 points in the second half. Three
it's
points.
a little bit on the defense as well because I think a lot of the scores that Minnesota had were like far
I
too
mean,
easy. Like
100%.
at the
Your
end of the
defense let up
game, well, just
33
listen, bro.
points or 39 points.
At the end of the game, you need one stop, and what does your defense do? One
Nothing.
stop to stop maybe the biggest cut bleeding of all time. You need one stop, and you give up a 64-yard touchdown. 64-yard touchdown. And then you give up the 2-point conversion after that. And the thing is the defense kind of galvanized itself a little bit in overtime where they were able to stop Minnesota at the end of the game. They were able to stop Minnesota in overtime. And the offense still couldn't put something together. So it's kind of like
Uh,
where at one second you want to blame the offense. You gotta I mean, where you want to blame the defense for giving up all in points, you also got to blame the offense because they didn't score.
oh
33
well,
points in
football
the
is a
first
team
half. They
effort.
only scored. That's what I'm saying.
But don't get me wrong. I just think, and I was a big fan of Jeff Saturday at the beginning of the season or the beginning when he first took over. But
Mhm.
it's kind of like you only won one game since you took over.
In the second half, Minnesota had a touchdown drive of 6 plays, 7 plays, 5 plays, 8 plays, and 1 play, with the
The
longest of
question is,
those
how did
drives
they
being
get
the
the
8.
ball that
They
fast?
scored so quickly and so efficiently that they had a touchdown drive in 2 minutes and 54 seconds, a touchdown drive in 3:40, a touchdown drive in 2:14, a touchdown drive in 1:36, and a touchdown drive of 13 seconds. That's how efficiently they scored in this game.
It's basically like they were like, all right, guys, we're gonna play with you guys for the first half. We're just gonna let you guys
How
do
does
whatever
that
you want.
even how do you even let that happen?
We're gonna let you guys do
That
whatever you want in
quickly
the
and that
first half.
fastly?
Yep.
At least play prevent defense and let them move down the field, at least make them take 5 or, 6 minutes off the clock. But you're telling me the longest drive was 3 minutes and 40 seconds? I mean, that's inexcusable.
And it really is inexcusable. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. I don't think there's much to really say about this game besides that
No.
it was obviously bad coaching, bad defense, bad offense, just all around bad team. That a team that I think will easily get dismantled
Yeah.
next year and won't
And
be
look at
there. Like,
Indianapolis and listen to Indianapolis' drives in the second half. 2 minutes and 41 seconds, 4 plays. 6 minutes or 6 plays, 3:29. They scored. They got a field goal on that drive. But then 3 and out, and then 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 5 plays, 3 and out. That's 5 3 and outs in the second half. Are you kidding me?
yep. And it's not. It
So
was no aggression in the second half. Nothing. Football's supposed to be an aggressive sport, and there was zero aggression shown on that field yesterday.
it's crazy. It's embarrassing to the not only the organization but the city. It's embarrassing to the fans and the NFL in general. And speaking of embarrassing, I'm assuming I'm assuming you watched the Raiders Patriots game, right?
You know, here's another thing, like I touched
It,
on earlier about refs.
wait, something happened in that game at the end, right? I'm
Yep.
jogging I'm trying to remember.
Here's the thing, like I said earlier about the refs. That was a bad call. And I'm not a Patriots hater. I don't care about the Patriots,
It looked like his
The
foot was
Giants
clearly out of bounds.
the Giants are
Clearly.
obviously over the Patriots when it comes to anything in life. But that was obviously a bad call. And I mean, like I said,
And they
you guys
reviewed it
have
too.
to
They reviewed it too.
for
That's even
10
worse.
minutes. And here's the thing, like I was saying earlier with like NFL betting and everything's starting to get a little too sketchy and games are obviously being like it's like they're being messed with. That is a thing where it's like, what the heck? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, so it's the thing like where they called it a touchdown on the field, so it means there needs to be conclusive evidence to
But that
overturn it.
was, I mean, I
His
thought it was
foot
pretty
looked
clear.
very clearly out of bounds on the replay.
And then we
So
don't
for
even
them,
like, do we have to talk about, what happened at the end of the game? Like that was even what?
well, it's the most embarrassing. I mean, it's not. It's the most stupid. You thought Marcus Allen's penalty against Carolina was a dumb play. I
That thing
mean,
cost you the game.
the thing they say, well, and it was like poor all around. Where the running back was it Stevenson? I think his
It
name
was
was,
it
or
was Stevenson. Yep.
yeah, Stevenson. Why would you even pitch it in the first place? And then Jacoby Myers, the one who threw it back to Chandler Jones, who coincidentally is a former Patriot. It was like a blind pass. It was like he turned around,
And
didn't
just
even
threw it,
see
tucked it up.
him. It looked like a Russell Westbrook pass when he's driving to the basket and tries to pass it to somebody who's not there. It looked
Or did you
like
see that? Did you see that Draymond Green pass the other
it
day where he
looked like
passed it to the
when
corner?
you pass it to somebody, it looked like when you pass it to a coach or the referee who's standing out of bounds because you think a player's there. What are you doing? It's not like and like the thing is, you only lateral when you need a score or you're going to lose the game. That is the only time you
I
do
think
that.
even more. I think it's even more embarrassing that you put your quarterback in a position to tackle this grown man that is
Yes,
three
and
hundred pounds and he stiffs
absolutely
from his face to the ground.
stiff armed him. That was just a terrible play all around by all parties considered. And it's just like it's just mind-boggling to me. Just take the run, get the extra 30 yards on your stat line, go down, go to overtime.
And I mean, it
That
was
is
a bad game.
crazy.
But I don't think there's much to touch on other than, like I said, the NFL needs to start doing something about these refs, and
And
like
that might that
they have to come out with some type of speech, some type of word. Like if you have people actually betting on that game,
Mhm.
the bet should be voided for that like that purpose, just to keep the integrity of the game. Like this is why I don't like sports betting because it becomes a nuisance. Like it becomes a problem where everyone's mad at players because of sports bets and this, that, the third. But
Mhm.
you can't even enjoy the game. And then you have plays like that where it's like, what is the NFL doing? Like, are they trying to mess up the game? Like, what is this?
Well, and so it's interesting. So obviously that play at the end, I mean, it was terrible. But another game that I'm not sure if you caught the end of, but the Buffalo Miami game. Miami goes on the road in the cold snow. Fans are throwing snowballs around, very
Oh
hostile
man,
environment.
that was like the worst. That it was the beginning
It's
of the
very
game.
Buffalo. It's a very Buffalo
Yeah,
thing,
it
isn't
was
it?
the
Like
beginning
jumping
of the
on
game,
tables with
and
no
they were
shirts on. Yeah.
throwing
Mhm.
snowballs. I
Yeah,
seen
for
a
sure.
cameraman get whacked in his
Yeah.
back by a snowball, and you know that thing's not snow. You know it probably feels like ice.
But Miami and Buffalo, they're playing a great game. Miami has Buffalo pinned at their, I want to say it was around their 40-yard, it was around the 40, 45, like close enough where you can't really punt, but far enough that it's too far for a field goal, if that makes sense, like around
Hmm.
that area on the field. In Buffalo, Josh Allen throws up. It wasn't a prayer, but it was a long pass on the left sideline, and it's dropped, and they call pass interference on the Miami defender, which gives Buffalo the ball at the 15-yard line with like a minute left. All they have to do is kneel the ball out, kick a field goal at the end. And it was kind of where the Miami defender got there a little bit early, but it wasn't enough to be deemed pass interference or a game-changing call at that point in the game. And I hate that's the thing where you talk about it's unwatchable. I hate when such a good game is ruined by something so little like a pass
By
interference that
calls.
shouldn't even be called,
Well,
right?
that's why like they try to say, "Oh, we just let the players, fight it out last couple minutes." But then you have something like the
Yes.
Giants game where you let the
Yes.
players fight it out, and it's obviously a pass interference. But
The
we're
thing
going to keep quiet on that one.
Well, the Giants one that's up for debate, but the thing about did you see it? Did you see the play at the end?
I didn't see the Bills play. No.
If you can pull it up, because in my opinion, it's one of those things. Just look up um Bills Dolphins. If you look up the highlights and go to like the very end, but it's one of those plays where yes, it was pass interference, maybe in the first or second quarter, but at that stage in the game where there's a minute left and a pass interference call puts Buffalo in the position to kick the winning field goal, it just didn't seem like it was enough for me, and it's so sad and it's such a shame. And Miami played a great game. They played a great game, and they've been struggling in terms of just winning or losing. Like they've lost 3 games in a row. But for them to play such a good game and really grind it out on the road in that environment in the cold, for it to be snatched away from them on a pass interference call that really was kind of so could have gone either way. Like it's just a shame and it's sad and I hate when officiating gets in the way
of good football games, you know.
of it was a great game, and Buffalo and Miami were trading blows. When it looked like Miami was down and out, they still found a way to come back and be in it at the very end. And just for them to grind it out so crazily, and it was one thing if the Miami defender clearly and obviously interfered and it was pretty blatant, but in my opinion, it wasn't that blatant, and it's just I don't know. I just feel
It was pretty great. You know what I did love how they stopped the game and told them it'd be a penalty if they kept throwing snowballs. I think
yeah.
that was great.
hmm But yeah, well, the snowballs thing is crazy. I mean, I was watching it with my dad, and I was like, "They're throwing snowballs," and he was like, "They're not throwing snowballs. Like, there's no way they're doing it." I'm like, yes, they're throwing snowballs. And as soon as Buffalo scored, like it wasn't during the play, but as soon as Buffalo scored, they panned the camera on the fans, and they're just like, I mean, they're throwing snowballs at each other. I mean, it looked like pure hate. Like they needed to get
I mean,
something off
every
their
time
chest.
someone scored, they just like threw
As
snow in
soon as
the
somebody
air.
scored, when they said it was going to be a 15-yard penalty on Buffalo, I was like, we need to get what's his face Goodell to step in. Like, I don't know if they could be stopped. Could you imagine being the fan that threw the snowball on the field that got your team like a game losing 15-yard
Well,
penalty?
imagine if it was a Dolphins fan. Like that doesn't even. That's why I don't like rules like
Like a
that. Really
Dolphins
don't.
fan wearing like a
Yeah,
Bills shirt, or like what if a Dolphins fan just went and got a Bills shirt and a Bills hat from the pro shop, put it on, and started throwing snowballs on the field?
yeah. You know what I mean? It was a good game, but it's there's a lot of good games we got to cover real quick.
Yeah. I mean, other than those ones, they're pretty. I mean, there were definitely some snooze fest, like Atlanta, New Orleans, snooze fest, Philadelphia,
Yeah.
Chicago, snooze fest. The Cleveland,
No,
Baltimore game, the Chicago, Philly. I mean, there were some good plays, but at the end of the day, when a 12-1 team plays a 3-13 or a three and
you
ten
know
team,
what's
and
gonna
they
happen here.
and they win, even the Baltimore Cleveland game was pretty much a snooze fest. I mean, 13-3. Neither team really looked great. Kansas City pulled out a close one against the Texans. They had a chance to win it, and the end of regulation, they missed a kick, and
Yeah,
then
man. The
they go
Texans are
ahead.
like putting up a fight lately.
Well, Kansas City gets the ball to start the overtime. They fail to convert. Texans get the ball, and then Austin Mills or Davis Mills, I think, excuse me, Davis Mills fumbles, and Kansas City gets a touchdown on the very next play on the first handoff, and they escape. And I'm not sure. I don't think they're the 1 seed, but they're tied with Buffalo. Obviously,
Yeah.
Buffalo has the tiebreaker, but yeah. Other than that, Cincinnati defeated Tampa Bay, and I know we kind of talked about last week Tom Brady potentially retiring, him being done. What did you see from him in the second half?
I just think it's bad football on Brady's part. He's a
Mhm.
veteran and he's making rookie mistakes. Like I said
Bad
last week,
turnovers,
the
bad turnovers. Oh,
underthrows,
yes.
the underthrows, the just no accuracy, just
hmm
stuff that you don't see from vets like Tom Brady, just stuff you don't see from Tom Brady in general. I think it's
hmm
really showing his age.
That interception was a bad throw. Like you talked about bad throws, like that interception was a bad one, and it was crazy because like I kind of mentioned like did Cincinnati win or did the Buccaneers lose? Because
I mean, the Buccaneers
every
gave
single
he gave
every single
four
possession
turnovers.
every single possession in the second half, or at least most of them, Cincinnati started in not only plus territory, but in scoring territory to the point where they only had to make a couple of plays and they were in
To
touchdowns. And
score.
let's not forget, Tampa Bay was winning 17-0. I'm not sure.
Halftime. I think it
around
was like
halftime.
middle of third quarter.
I think the Bengals might have got a field goal there at the end of the half. But Buccaneers, nonetheless, but the Buccaneers were winning 17-0 at one point in this game, and it's not like Cincinnati kind of shrugged and made a tremendous comeback, kind of similar to Minnesota being down 33. It was like
No,
the
it was like
Buccaneers. There
all
was
Buccaneers messing up.
the bad fake punt, the interception, and two fumbles by Tom Brady, all within 4 possessions, I want to say, which directly led to Cincinnati, not only Cincinnati points, but easy points. And whenever you're trying to keep a lead and whenever you're trying to stay out in front, the main thing that you need to do is take care of the football or in
And
any
I
sport,
feel
whether it's
Brady understands
basketball,
that.
you got to take care of the
I
basketball.
think Brady felt horrible yesterday, and I think he finally struck a low point in the football season where he looked at himself, and I feel like he was like, I either got to get it together or I can't play football. And I think that's what it is. You could see it in his face yesterday. He just disappointment after disappointment, and I think he finally got it yesterday where he was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna be done losing. Like I feel like
And
this is gonna be Brady's, evil story real quick.
I just, it's just, it's kind of sad because it was just the manner in which the Buccaneers kind of sold the bag, where, like we said, it wasn't necessarily the Bengals made great stops, great stands on defense, and then their offense put together great drives. I mean, they just scored touchdowns, and I mean, I think T. Higgins had 2 nice ones from Burrow. Like, it wasn't necessarily easy.
Gotta give it up to Jamar Chase too, man. He's a
Jamar
monster.
Chase made Jamar Chase. I think he had like 9 catches, but I think the Buccaneers. Is it coaching? What is it? Tom Brady not being the same? Like, why are they different? Because the team is
I think
is
it.
pretty
I think
similar. The
it's
team is pretty
Brady. I think
similar.
that I honestly think it's Brady. I mean, like I said, yeah, his stats. I feel like his stats don't show it, but when you actually watch Brady's games, you're like, dang, Brady, that was a really bad. That was a really bad underthrow. Like, dang, Brady, that was really inaccurate.
Yeah.
Not saying he's a bad quarterback. He's great all the time. It's just it's something that Brady shouldn't be doing. And like I said, I think it's over for him. I think it's like he's either going to really get it together right now for the next game, or he's going to be done.
Well, and the crazy thing is they can still make the playoffs. They could still win the Super
They
Bowl.
are
You
going to
still
make
have
the
not only
playoffs.
do you have Tom Brady, who he gets better in
You
the
got
playoffs,
Mike Edwin.
but you
You
have
not
a
saying Mike
roster
Evans.
around him. You have and I
Yeah,
know the O line has been beaten up, but they can still improve as time goes on during the season. I think the Buccaneers are toast. I doubt they'll even win a playoff game because I think they just look that bad.
oh yeah,
But
they look like the worst football team
they
in
are
the
not
NFC.
to be counted out, and we'll see what happens. But last game of the Week 15 slate coming up tonight, the Rams are traveling to Green Bay to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers.
I think this one's
Who
a
do you
not a
go ahead? Who
toss
do you
up.
think's gonna win? Yeah.
I don't think it's a toss up. I do think the Packers have the edge, but I do think that the Rams may pull this one out. So I'm gonna leave it open. I'm gonna pick somebody. I'm
Uh,
gonna pick the Packers, but
I'm
I
gonna
do think
yeah,
the Rams are gonna put up a good fight.
I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna take the Packers simply because they're at home. And
Baker
correct me if I'm wrong, but
Mayfield's going to prove to everybody how good he is.
yeah. Uh, okay. We'll see. If Baker Mayfield plays good tonight, and I mean good, not good enough. If he plays good tonight, maybe I'll concede some of that. But
Hopefully my boy Watson, big number 9, he gets 3 touchdowns tonight, and I go buy his
yeah,
jersey for leading me to the playoffs.
the interesting thing is, so we both pick Green Bay, but the spread is 7.5. Do you think the Rams will cover that, or basically the Packers are a touchdown favorite? Do you think they'll win by more than a touchdown, or do you think it'll be one of those maybe last
It
second
might be a
field goal
shootout because,
games?
like I
You
said,
think it's gonna be a
the
shootout?
Packers defense really isn't that good.
And the Rams defense, they're banged up. They're hurt. I mean, Aaron Donald, he might be one of the best. We're talking about greatest defenders of all time, and he's out. He's been injured. So, and Bobby Wagner is he injured too? Because I know he plays for the Rams. I haven't heard his name much though.
He played last week, I think.
Really?
Yeah, he's not hurt.
Wow, that's
He's
crazy.
actually had a good amount. Like if you look at Bobby Wagner's stats, he's had a good
Mhm.
amount of tackles this year, but he ain't being much of a factor on that sorry team.
So the Packers improved to 6-8. They're still unlikely to make the playoffs, but I mean, it's a step
Hey,
in the right direction.
anything can happen.
Yeah.
The Seahawks lose, and they beat the Lions end of the season. The Packers are right in the playoffs as long as Washington loses twice.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Lions and Packers could play potentially for that last playoff spot at the end of the season, but
Yeah.
that's pretty much it for Week 15 in the NFL. When we come back, we'll talk about some MVP candidates with 3 or so games left to play in the season.
All right, and we are back here tonight on 412 press coverage. We're going to not finish it up, but we are going to talk about the NFL Most Valuable Quarterback Award. Um, Mario, I want you to start off with your opinion on who's the most valuable player quarterback.
So there's a couple of choices, especially at the quarterback position. Which can we agree that this is a quarterback award only? That even
Oh yeah,
though I think a lot of times honestly probably a defensive player should probably be the MVP, or even maybe a running back, mostly defensive players, but
I
it's a
look back
quarterback
on it.
award.
I don't know how Derrick Henry didn't win it the year that he had 2,000 yards. I mean,
Yeah.
he single handedly carried that team.
And I mean, it's a shame that defensive players don't win it as much because I think they should. And same with honestly with wide receivers. I know Antonio Brown should have been MVP at least, or at least in the discussion a couple times during his prime. But basically, it's Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, the
Josh
obvious
Allen.
names. But I'm gonna go with a bit of a wild card, and I'm gonna throw Joe Shiesty, Joe Exotic's name in there. He's been a staple for the Cincinnati Bengals. They were pretty mediocre in the past, couple years, even before that without him. This season, he's thrown for 3,600 yards. He's 32 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's got the Bengals playing good football at the right time. And he's thrown 9 interceptions, but I think 6 of those have come against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you take away interceptions against them, he's only really thrown 3. I mean, some of the ones against Pittsburgh were pretty phenomenal interceptions by TJ Watt, too. So, and even those first 4 at the beginning of the season. So if you take after that first game of the season, he's only thrown 5 interceptions. He's looked really good. He's got the Bengals playing great ball. He's done it without Jamar Chase, the number 1 receiver. He was out for an extended period of time. Joe Mixon just came back. He was out. And he's got them winning. I believe they won 6 in a row. They've beaten the Chiefs once again for the 3rd time of his career. He's beaten Patrick Mahomes. They defeated the Bucks, even though it was, the Bucks made a lot of mistakes. They still won that game. They defeated Cleveland last week. I think the Bengals are going to continue to win. I like Joe Burrow. I think he's got a good swagger to him. I think he makes really good throws, and I think he has really good accuracy. And with the weapons around him and the way the Bengals have been playing, I don't see why he can't be in the at least close to the discussion at the end. So he would be my pick right now.
Well, here's the thing. I like how your pick is. I like your pick, but it's just easily Patrick Mahomes for me. Um, there's really like he's having an off season, and his off season is still better than Joe
Yeah.
Burrow's best season. Let's just put it
Yeah.
that way.
Hmm.
Um, I would say Hurts. I think he's a great candidate. He's the best. He's the best quarter. He's the best team, and he's the quarterback of the best team.
He's the quarterback on
So
the best team. Yeah.
so essentially, it's probably going to go to him. But he is hurt now, so I don't know how that plays into just into how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But I do think it's easily Mahomes. Let's not let's talk about something real quick. He can possibly break the single season passing record. There's 3 games left in the season, and he has 4,500 yards.
What's the record? Like 50, 50 some hundred?
I'd have to look.
I mean, Mahomes is he's a phenomenal player. He does way more with not way less, but considerably less. I mean, he lost Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs still have some pretty solid weapons though. Their running backs, Pacheco and McKinnon, they came out of nowhere, but they've been playing solid. He still obviously has Travis Kelce, which My fantasy team will tell you is one of the best tight ends, if not probably not even one of the best. He is the best tight end in the NFL, and he has good games on consistent basis. We saw the game against the Chargers; he basically won for them. He had those, I think it was like 3 or 4 touchdowns. But I like Patrick Mahomes. I think the thing is obviously Patrick Mahomes is the best player, but the question is he the most valuable? And
I
with
think
him
he is.
between him and Burrow, I think I don't know. I think Joe Shiesty is pretty important to the Bengals' success. I think if you took another quarterback and not obviously not a if you took an average starter and put him in the Bengals position, I don't think they're nearly as good as they are. But then
So
again, the same could go for the Chiefs.
I want you to answer me this. So the single season record is 54 or 5,477 yards. He has 4,500 yards right now. Three games
Yeah, I
left in
mean,
the
what do you
season.
have to average? What, like 350 yards a game over the next three? Yeah, I mean,
That's it.
it's not it's not out of the question. But I mean, the thing is, I could see Mahomes getting it. I think Burrow. I mean, if Burrow continues to play good as well, who knows? If Cincinnati beats Buffalo and Burrow outshines excuse me, Josh Allen and kind of carries Cincinnati to the 1 seed, I think it could be an interesting debate. But the thing is like it's who's the most valuable, not who's the best. And I think Patrick Mahomes is obviously the best player. He's obviously the best player in the NFL. But
But is it really who's the most valuable? Because let's be honest, the award isn't most valuable player. Because
that's
if it
what it
is,
should be.
it wouldn't go to a quarterback every year. So I'm just giving
That's
my
true.
guess on who's
That's
going to
true.
get
That's a
it,
good point.
and I believe it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. I think people are tired of seeing him get it, but I don't believe that he won't get it. He is the best quarterback in the game, and it's as simple as that. He's close to breaking the record. I mean, he has a very high chance.
Yeah, respectable.
So it's always going to be Patrick Mahomes for me. But that guy Jalen Hurts, he's special over there.
Yeah, he's
But
good. He
he is
makes
hurt
good
right
throws.
now. He's
His
hurt right
his
now,
deep
so
ball
I just don't
accuracy
think.
to yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be. I don't think he'll be in conversation only because I think he's going to miss the next like 2 games or
Well,
so. So
if he missed one game, he still have a chance. But not only if he misses more than one, but he's also missing like the most important game of the
yeah,
season,
the
which
most important
against the
game.
Cowboys. That I mean, that's like the biggest game. Is it Sunday Night Football on? Is it on Christmas? Like that's probably
I
one of the
think
biggest
so.
games of the NFL season.
It's
So
probably going to be the biggest game of the NFL. Yep.
it's unfortunate that he's missing at that time. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how the rest of the season will play out. Like you said, Mahomes could break the record if he, I mean, yeah, 350 a game for Mahomes is not.
It's not over.
That wouldn't be shock. It wouldn't be a
That's
shock.
that's a
So
that's an average Mahomes day.
yeah. Well, all right. So that will conclude our NFL talk for this episode. When we come back, we'll talk about the real football. And welcome back. Now we're going to talk about the World Cup final. Argentina won on penalty kicks 4-3. Messi gets his first World Cup championship of his career, and
Messi to go.
according to Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok alike, he is now officially the GOAT if he wasn't already. Interesting game. Messi came up clutch. He scored the opening goal on a penalty kick. He scored an overtime, which should have been the game winner, but because football has weird rules, it wasn't the game winner. They still had to continue playing, and they went to penalty kicks, and then he scored in the penalty kick. So shout out to Messi. I mean, shout out to Argentina as a whole team. I think in the game in general, like Argentina, I think they played maybe 130 minutes of actual play time, not including the penalty kicks. And I think Argentina dominated for about 100 of those. They obviously
Yeah, I
dominated
mean,
early. France, or excuse me, not France, Germany had that momentum when they got the goal on the penalty kick and then
it's France. It's France.
um, um, scored on that really nice shot by him. And Argentina really responded well, and they responded well enough and good
Let,
enough to
let's
be able to take the lead in overtime. And then
let's talk
France
about
came back
that for a
again.
second. Like Mbambe is like he's probably the greatest.
He's
Not the
official,
greatest,
bro. He
but
is
that was
official.
like that was the greatest one man show in any sport I may have seen in a while. Like
Well, I mean,
His name is going to be known in
yeah.
America.
I mean,
Look,
he was on
we
yeah
don't care about soccer players, and
football.
yeah, whatever. We don't care, and his
No,
name is being spoken here in Pittsburgh
I'm gotta
over
say it right, bro.
one of the greatest one man shows in any sport.
I
And
wouldn't
I
say it
mean,
was one of the.
I'd
I
say
mean,
it was a one man show.
yeah, it was okay. Like, no, it was great. It was great. Obviously, I wouldn't say it was one of the greatest one man show because it was. Remember, two of those goals were on penalty kicks, and obviously you have to be in the spot to get a penalty kick. But still, I mean, it's a
Yeah, I
wide
mean
open shot. It's
some
a
of the
one on
penalty
one against
kicks
the
were a little
goalie. Yeah,
crappy.
it's a one on
Like
one against the goalie. So he scored. He was the one who scored the goals. But let's not act like he scored three. The second goal, which ended up tying it in regulation, was incredible. But let's not act like he single handedly like went down and
yeah,
scored those goals. You know?
and I mean like the one penalty kick I didn't agree with. Like I was talking to a couple people that play soccer
Yeah.
professionally, and I
Hmm.
was like, this is like you get a penalty kick because you did a spin and it hit your elbow. Like
Yeah.
I
So
thought it was nonsense.
yeah, I mean, but I mean, I just want to shout out to Argentina though for the way they responded because it would have been easy for any team to two goals in soccer in a however many minutes, maybe like a
So in
5 minute
2 minutes,
span.
it was 2 minutes. You scored
That's like
80
unheard
and
of.
81.
You would think if you have a two-goal lead with, let's say, with extra time, 15, 7, 16, 17 minutes to go in the game, you kind of have it in the bag. And
Hey,
so
every sport you got to finish.
for
Every single sport.
France, for France to kind of take the momentum, and for Argentina to kind of relax and allow themselves to kind of settle in and settle down and kind of take momentum back because they played really well in that overtime. I mean, they played great. Obviously, France scored the one late, another penalty kick, but Argentina played good enough to give themselves an opportunity. And I mean, I just think that was, I think that was really,
I think
it
Mbambe's
was
team
really a
just let him
champion.
down.
It
I
was a
think his team.
championship effort, though.
Let's talk about it. Like it was his team let him down. They should have won that game. In the way with how hard he came back and he
Yeah,
played, they should have won that game.
yeah. I
And
mean,
shout out to
well,
Messi for being Messi, but it's ridiculous that a guy can try that hard, play his
yeah,
heart out, and still
and
not win.
and even on the penalty kicks, right? Like your goalie gave up all four goals, and I know the penalty kicks are the goalies are guessing out there. You can tell they're guessing which way where you're going to kick. So if you
Oh
guess
yeah, you got
wrong,
to though. You got to.
but then again, Mbappe's teammates, one of them didn't even get a shot on goal.
Yeah, literally missed the
So you
whole
talk
goal.
about teammates letting you down. It's one thing for your goalkeeper to give up all the goals, which whatever. I'm sure I've never played soccer before, so I don't know. But
It's a hard. It's hard.
missing the net, yeah, no,
Yeah,
clearly,
you
but
totally
missing the
missed the
net
net.
is a little more. It's a little worse than your
It's a
goalkeeper
mental
giving up
mistake.
four goals. Yeah,
It's a very bad mental mistake at that.
for sure, for sure. But yeah, I mean, Messi is what is he? He's going to retire now, right? I mean, he's
Messi's the
pretty old.
goat. No, he's not. I think yesterday he said he might do one more World Cup. And imagine if he
Four
goes
years.
back and fight and wins another World Cup. I think he's
Yeah.
undisputed if he's not already
Oh, I
undisputed.
think he
But
already is undisputed. I mean, I don't know about soccer, but you know what I would love to see? I would love to see the United States play France, and I would love to see that. That would be a
I
great
think
game.
you know what's really great is I think it really brought soccer to be a known sport with the
It
whole World Cup.
We'll see how much it's talked about over the course of the next not only couple weeks and months, but the next couple years. But I don't watch. I don't
I
watch a lot of
enjoyed that
soccer.
soccer game.
I
I
actually
enjoyed that
enjoyed it
game.
too. I covered soccer up at IUP last semester, so I watched a lot of it, especially recently. So I mean, it helped that I was kind of understanding a little bit more of what was going on. But I genuinely enjoyed watching the United States team, and
I
whenever they
mean,
played,
soccer and hockey's like not hand in hand, but
eh,
you kind
mm,
of get some of the same rules with like the
yeah,
offsides
yeah,
and
I think
all
that's a bit
that
of a
type of stuff.
it's a bit of a
It's
stretch,
a
but yeah, I
stretch.
see what you
It's a
mean. I see what
stretch,
you mean.
but I'm saying coming from a standpoint of like
Yes,
offsides and stuff
yes,
like that.
yes. I will say, did you watch the game when the United States played Iran to make it to the group stage? Well,
No.
that was basically our championship. We pretty much knew we might not have, even if we won the first group stage game, the round of 16, we probably weren't going to win past that. So we played Iran, and we had to win to make it past the group stage. So not tie. If Iran tied us, or if they beat us, we wouldn't make it. So it was 1-0 United States at the end of the game, and it looked like it was a 0-0 game the way Iran was playing because they just needed one goal. They needed to tie the game 1-1 and they would tie. And I was genuinely like nervous, like my heart was beating fast. Somebody who's never
Watch
really
soccer.
watched
Care
soccer,
about
especially
soccer.
as a fan, from a fan's perspective, and the way that how like I wasn't excited, I was happy and it was good to see, but because
Yeah,
the
I
United
haven't
States
watched.
soccer team, the United States soccer team has not been good. Like especially
No,
over the years, they didn't even make the
besides the
last
women's
World Cup.
soccer team.
Besides the
The
world,
women's
yeah,
soccer
true,
team
the
is
women's
hard.
soccer team,
But that's what I'm
yes,
saying. I haven't watched many soccer games in the coming like in the past couple of years. And
mhm,
I sat down and watched that game yesterday. I was like, dang, this game is actually like
yeah.
it was really good. And it wasn't boring. It wasn't like it was packed with action. Like I
Yeah, no,
loved
for
it.
sure. Very exciting. When France scored those goals, especially Mbappe's second goal, the one that tied it in regulation, I mean, that was just
Yeah,
like
it was great.
that was wild. It was crazy for sure. Yeah, soccer is an interesting sport. I think the issue is like even all the players on the men's national team, they don't play in America. They all play in the Premier League. So maybe if how the NFL, they have games in Germany and they have games in London, and now they
Yeah.
have games in Mexico. Maybe if the Premier League, I'm not sure if they already do, they might, but maybe if the Premier League come over and plays in the United States a couple times a year, maybe we draw a big crowd, draw some TV coverage, people talk about it on First Take and Undisputed. Who knows? Soccer could be maybe one day, obviously not soon or not within the next couple years, but maybe eventually it could be on not on par with the more what's the word, popular
It can't
sports
be
in
on
America,
yeah, it
but
can't be like football, but
it won't be with
it
football
can
and
be
basketball, but it could be with hockey and baseball. It could definitely pass
it could
baseball.
definitely be a baseball,
Yeah, I mean, so
especially
yeah,
in
we'll see.
America. Yeah.
Yeah, but well,
Let's finish it all up with one of our favorite topics, the Lakers.
the who?
The Lakers.
Oh, the Lakers. Who plays for them again?
Just a guy named LeBron James.
Oh, you're talking about Legoat. And then they have another.
Yeah,
The Lakers have another player,
I don't want
AD
to. I
Jonathan
don't want to talk about him, man.
J Rod. If
I,
I asked you what AD stood for, what would you say? Always doubtful, because Anthony Davis is never in the
Charming,
lineup, it seems. And as
charming.
soon as the Los Angeles Lakers start to hit their stride, Anthony
It just
Davis
seems like
comes
he
in
gets hurt every time.
with his regularly scheduled ankle or foot or calf injury, which puts him out for he's out for at least a month.
And
He
it's
was
only
starting to play
funny.
good.
It's only funny because it's really true. And I think that's the worst part. Like it's only funny because it's true. Like if it wasn't true, it wouldn't be as funny. But it's really funny because it's literally like it's scheduled. Like he's just gonna be out here, he's gonna be out there. And I mean, like the Lakers, who's playing tonight? No one. Not Russell, not
LeBron's
AD,
out.
not LeBron.
Pat Bev was out yesterday. I know LeBron's out. Westbrook is out now. I just think it's so sad about the Lakers. Is like 2021, the season after they won the championship in the bubble. We're talking about the Lakers seriously contending for repeating as champions. And Anthony Davis goes down, and the Lakers are still playing kind of good, but then LeBron goes down too. And then they have to be in the play-in game. Obviously, they dropped all the way from like the second seed to the seventh seed. They have to play in the play-in game. AD comes back in the playoffs. We lose game one to the Suns, but then we lose it. We win a tough one on the road in game two, and then we win in game three. Another, that wasn't a close game in game three. I'm talking about when we played the Suns in 2021. And then we're beating the Suns in Staples Center at home. In game four, Anthony Davis goes down. The Suns basically outplay us for the rest of the series. I mean, it wasn't even close after that. We were tremendously outplayed and outscored.
And you see how you kept bringing up just AD being hurt. It just seems like every time we need AD, he just lets us down.
As soon as he gets hurt. Last season, the Lakers obviously didn't even make the playoffs. Anthony Davis missed. I couldn't tell you how many games he missed, but I think it was around half the season. I think it was about 40 games he missed last season. And then this year, the Lakers obviously start off bad.
AD comes back.
We start
He
to
has
pick it up. 80
amazing games,
back, and he's dropping 55.
20,
He's
20
dropping 30.
rebounds. 40 points. He was a monster, and then he
It's
gets his
foot
scheduled
soreness.
ankle injury.
It's an ankle. Like it's not even like he tore his labrum or a very bad. Even like Steph's injury. You see Steph's injury the other night.
I
He
didn't see
kind of
Steph's
like
injury.
he kind of like reached for the ball and he could tell his shoulder got separated, it got a little messed up. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks. That's understandable. It was an injury that looked like
But
what it was. It
AD
looked like an
be
injury.
that's someone said that on TikTok is like AD's out for 3-4 weeks for spraining his ankle or stubbing his big toe. Like just stuff
It's
that
like
shouldn't
those
he
nagging
shouldn't be out for three
injuries.
weeks.
It's
Yeah.
like those nagging injuries that kind of happen later on in your career because your body isn't the same. Anthony
I mean,
Davis
but
is
did it
what,
really
30 years
happen
old?
later on? Like
That's what
he's
I'm
not that
saying.
old.
That's why it's such a problem and it's such a bad pattern because he's so young and I mean, he's not early in his career anymore, but he's not in the latter half. He's not in the end of his prime, end of his career. He's still in his
Yeah.
prime.
I
And the
mean,
fact
I
that it's
think
like,
it's over for AD. If we're being totally honest, I don't think another team will offer him a
I don't
very
know,
big contract. Um, I think at this point, I can confidently say he is the most injury prone player in the NBA,
especially injury
especially
prone superstar, right?
especially superstar wise.
Who's been there, done that. We have obviously like I think when you think of injury prone players over the years, I mean a few names like obviously Brandon Roy, who was had definitely had that great season. He got hurt. Obviously Greg Odom, who I mean he was very injury prone before his career even got to start.
Yeah, and I mean
Among
it's
other
it's
players,
just
I can't really think of any right now. But Anthony
it's
Davis
sad to
was
think
there
about.
at the MVP level, winning the championship. Even Tracy McGrady, I guess, is similar to where he had bad injuries and he was a
Yeah, and Tracy was a monster.
So it's just it's sad to see because Anthony Davis is truly a talent, and where Tracy McGrady is considered a top player, Anthony Davis truly has potential to be one of the greatest players of all time,
Yep, and he's just injured
and it's
all the
it's
time.
all the way. And
Every time you want him. Imagine having
uh,
a basketball fantasy team and you drafted AD.
oh yeah, and the Lakers are just LeBron can't do it on his own.
Nope.
Did you get a chance? Did you see any of the game yesterday?
I caught the ending where
Yeah.
LeBron almost gave up the ball.
So the thing about the Lakers is like they're having a hard time finishing games, kind of like what we talked about with some of the NFL teams, right? Yesterday, they were winning by 4 points with about a minute left, and they gave up back-to-back scores. I think they gave up a bucket. Daniel Gafford, at the end of the game, was constantly getting offensive rebounds and put-back dunks at the end in clutch time, edging the Wizards. Because the Lakers were winning by, I think they were winning by like 10 at one point,
Hmm.
and Daniel Gafford getting offensive rebounds. What is that an attribute of? Lack of size, lack of rebounding. Anthony Davis is a 6'11" big man who rebounds. That's where we're starting to see kind of the issues with him not being in. LeBron James also he can't do it by himself. There was a point where LeBron comes in, or he's in the game. It's in the third quarter. The Lakers are up. The Lakers were up 85 to. Or no, they were up 84-75. LeBron goes out. Washington immediately goes on a 14-0 run. They're winning 89-85 now. LeBron comes back in, and the Lakers immediately go on a run of their own to kind of take the lead back where they'd stayed until the very end, where obviously it was tied at the end. But Anthony Davis is not being there will come back to hurt the Lakers more and more the longer he's out. It's a shame. And when you're the Lakers and there are games that you should win that you don't, a la the one against Philadelphia where AD misses the free throws at the end and they can't close it out in overtime, or against the Celtics when you miss a bad three, LeBron on one end, and then Jason Tatum comes down and Anthony Davis is missing free throws at once again, and like I said, Tatum comes down and hits a shot in LeBron's face and they lose in overtime, and the Lakers are now 12-16. Everybody's out tonight. That means they're probably going to lose. So I think everything that could go wrong for the Lakers so far this season has gone wrong, and it's just sad. I mean, I feel bad. LeBron is obviously one of my he might be my favorite
Favorite
athlete of
players of
all
all time.
time, and to watch him deteriorate, where we kind of talk about Brady being kind of his issues and his problems or his downfall, I guess that's kind of affecting the Bucks. Whereas with LeBron, it's not necessarily him, but it's team around him and the players around him failing him, and it breaks my heart.
It's pretty sad to watch. I ain't gonna lie to you, but it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and hopefully the Lakers can get it together.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the issue with the Lakers is like they're not built to be with LeBron's natural play style at this point in his career, where I mean, he can shoot for
He's
sure,
gonna
kind
drive
of.
to the bucket and he's gonna dish it out. He
He's going to
needs to
drive
get
to
the
the
shot.
basket and find open players, and those open players aren't going to hit the shots because they're not consistent enough. And if the Lakers honestly found some consistency, like Russ has been good since coming off the bench. I mean, he's been pretty solid. AD obviously was averaging 30 points a game, and LeBron is LeBron, but they need to find consistency from the players around him because if Schroeder and Reeves and Beverly and Troy Brown Jr. players of that such can't knock down open shots, then the Lakers are doomed. And they're going to be so easy to defend, especially come playoff time. If you can't shoot in the playoffs, you're not going to succeed. And
Never,
that's the path the Lakers are headed on.
especially with a team like the Golden State Warriors out there who can shoot
Hmm.
them all
That
in
will
all
outshoot you.
positions.
That's the thing about the Lakers is like at this point in the NBA, it
You
doesn't
gotta
matter how
have
good
shooters,
it doesn't matter how good your defense is. If other teams are shooting 53 pointers a game, they're going to make at least you would think they'll make at least 10 or maybe
30%.
15. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So
And if you're only shooting 23s and you're
yeah,
missing
so
90%,
yeah, I hope the Lakers can get it together. But if they're going to do that, AD is going to need to be a part of that, and
has to be,
it doesn't
100%.
seem like he's been around. So
Nope, not at all.
that's all I got. The Steelers versus Raiders game next weekend. Who do you have in that one? I'm not sure what the money line is, but Steelers at home. I think the Steelers should be favored.
I don't think the Raiders are making the playoffs, so I'm probably gonna go with the Steelers
I'm picking the Steelers too. Hopefully Kenny can come back. Because let me tell you, that game yesterday was the most boring Steeler win. I've watched some boring Steeler losses. All right. We lost 41-10 to the Bengals, and we've had some boring losses in the past, but that was the most boring win I think I've ever seen the Steelers play. 5-8 Steelers versus the 5-8 Panthers. And Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett was basically the only reason I was watching the Steelers this
just
season. And to go on the road with Mitch Trubisky versus Sam Darnold, the battle
you
of the
don't want to see
bus,
it.
the battle
Yeah,
of the top of the battle of the backups. Like, so hopefully Kenny can come back. The game will be excited because home Saturday night, immaculate reception anniversary. The Steelers will be wearing the throwback unis. The Raiders, they still have Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, so that's still a superstar duo coming in. But I hope it'll be an
yeah,
exciting one.
50
But hopefully
years,
Kenny's
50
back.
years,
If
yeah,
Kenny
50
is back,
years
I'm picking the Steelers regardless. But if Kenny's back, I'm definitely picking the Steelers, and I'm interested to see what they do.
for surely. All right, that's gonna conclude it for today.
Thank you for watching.